I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Global Watchmen News. My name is Lori Swan. Hope you guys are all doing well. If you are in the live chat, we do ask you to keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there to make sure that we stay within the terms of service put forth to us by the platform we're utilizing tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a minute, hit that bell so you know when we go live. We are back on the air. I'm sorry about the time. Yeah, we'll get it all figured out. I'm just got used to the time over in Arizona. Now I'm back in Central Time. So yeah, I'm trying to get a little bit. But we have our premiere tonight. Hopefully Ernie will see this and he will come on. I didn't even have time to send him the link. But I can do that if he, like I said, if he's listening. But we want to welcome for the premiere of Global Watchmen News, Season 11, Episode 1. We have with us the very lovely, one of my dearest friends, Dr. Joye Pugh. Hey, Joy.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I missed you so much. All day today, I've been so excited. My best friend and I talk about you a lot because of all the stories that we have done about all the end times things and all the podcasts for, a long time. And she's like me. You just have such a wealth of knowledge that it's so much fun to be on the show when somebody really knows what you're talking about. So thank you for letting me be your first guest for your new season. And I hope that we can get back to that once a month thing that we were doing in the last season. I look so forward to it. And even though I was busy doing things today, it was like watching the clock, making sure that I was going to be right where I needed to be to be here tonight with you. So I am really pleased to be your guest.
I'm so pleased that you are my first guest. And like we talked before when I'm there, it's been an uphill battle this past year. Getting back to this, I just feel like there's been this spiritual attack. I mean, I believe that because things were just so bizarre, the things that happened and how it happened, and just everything. Um, it, talk about getting blindsided. And which is exactly what I did. I was blindsided. I didn't know any of it was coming. And I've been fighting, and finally I'm back home, and things are good, and we're back on the air again. But I told Ernie the other night, I said, it kind of feels like, I had somebody tell me the other day, they said that God needed you to rest. He needed you to rest for what's coming, so you'd be ready. And I said, well, I guess I'll look at it that way. I don't know, but it's been a journey.
Well, sometimes in my own life, it seems like this year has been one of a lot of up and down, and very, very difficult. I had to fight a lot of things in my life that have brought me so much sadness, and it's just it's heart wrenching things. It's things that you feel like you've fought and you're fighting against this enemy that just keeps trying to destroy what you're trying to build. And when you really do love the Lord and you really want to do what is right, it seems like the more you try to do that, the more Satan is trying his best just to destroy whatever it is that's going to make you, what you feel is going to make you happy. And he always finds the Achilles heel on all of us. I mean, that's one thing that my best friend Tanya and I talk about many times, is things that would upset her don't even bother me, but things that upset me wouldn't bother her, because we would handle it in so many different facets of ways. But it's like, Satan can find the thing that really you love the most. Yeah. And he will go after that every time. I mean, I will tell you, from the time that I started, writing books about end of days back in 1999, my life has been a series of very tragic events. And people, think, well, you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. They have that attitude about you, but they don't really know. They don't know the fights and the things that you've been through. And I've never been one just to go on a show and say, let me just start before I was born, the things that happened to me, and go through all these terrible, tragic events. But I will tell you that in writing all the books that I have written, they were done at a time in my life that was most tragic things that could have ever happened. And even this past year, in trying to get back into stuff after we had such a terrible hurricane, my house is full. I'm fighting with insurance companies. I still don't have a roof on my house. I do have tarps, but it's a tragic thing when you've got so much going on and you're trying to do for God. Right. I put him first in everything I do. And I love the Lord. I want to serve him. That has been, I feel like, my calling. And I want to help people really get a broad understanding that we are living at the end of days. And I can clearly say that the more I've tried to, I would say, preach that and teach that, the more the enemy has attacked me in ways. He always went after the people I loved. From the time I started in 1999, he hit my mother with cancer. He took went through the different processes of books. My grandmother, that I love better than anything in the world, hit her. My husband of 33 and a half years hit him. And then, I remarried, and all that COVID went through and all the stuff that was all involved. Every time I was writing a book, I was dealing with the most tragic things in my life. 3 deaths in it, 3 deaths, and 1 divorce. And I'm going to tell you, when you love people and you love somebody with all of your heart, and you just can't get past the evil that is being thrown at you. It's like Rick Bell, who wrote a book, and I used to do his radio shows with him. He specifically said, you're fighting blindfold with these demons. And, if you could see it coming and try to, deflect it, but many times you can't. And you get hit with these things and you're like, where did this come from? I mean, it's freak things. It's like, my mother she never drank, she never smoked, whatever. She was, she was an active person. She got colon cancer. I mean, literally, she has a sister that's still alive at 103 years old. I mean, my mother she was the last of 6 children. She should have lived a very long time. My grandmother was in her 90s. She had been active all of her life, and she falls and she has, this setup that ends up in an Alzheimer's state. My husband, Mel, he took a flu shot.
Right.
Nobody thought about taking a flu shot. No. And, and it destroyed him. And then who would have thought COVID could come along and you're in another relationship and it destroys that and every time you try to get past this stuff, it has been, like I say, if I had to sit down and tell you day to day, that's why I get this as how hard this has been for you, because I can clearly tell you that at no time has this been easy for me to try to do what I do and to stay positive, to try to teach people. So when I'm talking to people, I literally understand how hard it is in the world we're living in. Because if you love the Lord, I'm going to tell you, Satan is coming after you, and he's going to come after you with every ounce of whatever it is that you love the most. If I didn't love those things, if I hadn't loved my mother, if I hadn't loved Mel, if I hadn't loved my grandmother, if I hadn't loved my husband, then it wouldn't have been a problem. It'd have been like, okay. And I know people who have lost people and they went, I'm glad he's dead. It's terrible. But they lived in such turmoil. They didn't have that feeling. But for people that I have loved, I have hurt, and I it's hard sometimes for me to articulate the pain sometimes that I feel, because I was brought up not to quit, to fight the good fight, to stay positive, and yes, I cry. That's probably the thing. A lot of people go out and drink and they party and they use drugs and they do whatever. I just sit down and cry. And sometimes I've cried all night long.
Yeah.
And it just be for weeks on end. I mean, I'm not telling a story, because that is the only way to cry and pray. That's the only way I know how to really deal with this fight like it is. I mean, I know sometimes people say, well, quote scripture and keep believing. You can do all of that, but there is this internal fortitude that Satan's going to go after, and he's going to break you down to almost you thinking your mind is going to snap.
Yeah.
And I've been there. I've been there to that point that I thought I would not see the next day. I might not see the next hour. I mean, people were so worried about me whether or not to call the ambulance, because they really thought I was dying. And so I get when people talk about, well, I could have taken my life. I couldn't take it anymore. I came so close to just giving up and just giving it away. I understand that because I've been there. And so when you read my work, when you hear me talk to you in any podcast, on anything I do, I'm like you, Lori. I want people to make it into heaven. And I know how hard it is to walk the walk and talk the talk. It is, it's easy to say, I love Jesus, love Jesus, love Jesus. But there's more to saying, I love Jesus. It's walking it every day. It's walking it every second of your life. It's always looking up in the worst of situations, in the total worst of situations. And I know that even my best friend says that, there was a time when I was fighting all of this when Mel was so sick. And if you could see a picture of what I looked like when I was sitting in a basement of the hospital, the ICU down in Jacksonville, Florida. Lori, if I were to show that picture to you, you would not believe what I looked like. How I did not die during that time. I was so sick, sitting there in this little corner trying to sleep like this, and not even feeling like I had the strength to walk to the bathroom, much less get me something to eat. And there were days that I didn't even get up to go walk to get something to eat because I thought, if I do that, I'm going to fall out. And then who's going to stay in this room, this ICU room, and watch what's going on? I mean, so, I'm telling you that if Satan is not fighting you, he already has you. If there's anybody out there that thinks, oh, I got everything just roller coaster right along, I would ask you to recheck yourself, because the people that I know right now, I've been on a lot of radio show hosts lately, and before we went on and during the time that we talked, they all were saying, Joy, you just can't imagine what's going on. And like I say, my best friend would say, Joy, if I did not know you, if I did not live, right across the street from you, if I was not in your house, if I was not aware of what you've gone through since I've known you, she said, I couldn't believe the things that can happen to you. And it is tough. It is very, very, very tough. And, you can get on this thing where you just, I'm not going to run. I'm not a runner. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to take off. I'm not going to hide. I want to face it just straight on. But, when I do, I want the truth. If you're going to talk to me, I want the truth about what you're talking to me about, because I want to be able to give you the truth. But, this day and time, people are so busy playing the game with Satan and lying. The biggest thing is the lying. And so, I would love to develop this, and maybe somebody may be looking and watching this. If you can help me do this, make a lie detector test so you can just put it on your finger and say, okay, I'm going to say this, and you see that screen, I'm telling you the truth. Okay. I think if we could show people,
that would be awesome. Yeah.
This is the truth. This is not a lie. This is not conspiracy. I'm not just sending you or whatever. And then say, now, if you're going to talk to me, you put it on, and then you would know you're staying on an even keel. People just did not lie like they do now.
No,
oh my gosh. You're to the point, like, sometimes I'm like, I am telling the truth. Can you not understand? It is the truth. What can I need to do? And I'm kind of like these people that if I'm not telling the truth, I worry that God is listening. And, my research in my latest book that we're going to talk about tonight, Be Smart, I explain to you, your DNA frequency is putting off these electromagnetic waves. And God is receiving that. It says he knows every thought, even the ones that don't come out of your mouth. Your brain is giving thought, and it's going through this process of frequency that he can hear. It's like people who go and get a closet and think that they could do something behind God's back. Excuse me. He knows everything. So I'm always thinking, now, if I tell a story, God's going to just bring this lightning bolt down. And I know the other day I was laughing at a friend of mine. We had gone to the church to do some practices of singing, and they were making a little comment, and I kind of backed up, and she was just kidding, but I backed up. She says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm waiting for that lightning bolt to come."
I don't want to be standing next to you when that lightning bolt comes down.
So I don't know how God doesn't do it. I'm sorry, just looking at what this world is going through with this P. Diddy stuff, the Epstein stuff, all the stuff that we see happening, the rioting, the carrying on, the ungodliness, the sexual perversions that are happening, the hurt that people are doing. I am so shocked that God's not going,
Yeah, I mean, it's you said that about things that are personal, and how Satan just comes in and takes and attacks you on things that matter.
He does.
It those things, the little things matter too. I mean,
That's
the
right.
truthfulness with people and stuff like that. I know that, like I said, mine came completely out of left field. I wasn't even. I lost my daughter's father, um, last February, well, a year ago in February, and dealing with that and how he was tragically taken from us. And
Yes.
then all of a sudden, I'm put into it was a fight for my life. I mean, I could have very easily, um, signed the divorce papers and just walked away, but I wasn't going to give Satan the satisfaction of winning.
Well, that's the thing about it is that you don't want Satan to win, and that's what I think that I will
Yeah,
stay in a situation about like just go on, let it go. But I've never been a person to give up on anybody.
yeah,
Even
me neither. Me
my
neither.
clients that I had for years and years and years that were very handicapped, people would say, "Joy, there's nothing else you can do. Just let it go." And I'm like, "No, I'm going to be
Nope.
praying about this because I know that there's got to be something else out there, and I am going to try it." And so many times, Laura, I had people who would come from, another actually from other states. They would hear about the program that I had and they would call me and they would bring me their loved one to look at. And they say, "Look, if I can't get this person into your program, if you don't have an opening, I want to be on a waiting list. Just look at my child or look at my, handicapped sister or whatever. Give me your professional opinion of what you can do or what you think can be done to help them in some form or fashion." So I've never been a person, when it was a hard situation to just quit. There was a time in my life. There was actually 3 years of my life when I was a junior, a senior, and a first year college, and I was an athlete, and I had absolutely had exhausted myself because I was an athlete that went 24/7. In other words,
Hmm.
I did something athletic 12 months out of the year, so my body was not ever resting, and we had mononucleosis come up, and 3 people that were drinking out of the same what we did back in the day, which they don't do anymore. We had these Gatorade bottles that had hard like straws that came out, and you were supposed to just squeeze them and let
Yep.
it blow in your mouth. Well, we as kids, we didn't think nothing about it. You put your mouth on the water fountain if you were hanging onto the water fountain because you were so tired from running, blood and guts in the gym. You didn't think about picking up anything. And so my sister and I and another person that was on the tennis team ended up with it. And of course, they didn't do other sports, and so they kind of got better like during the summertime. And then I was doing sports year round. I mean, I would work out, I'm telling you, hours, not 1 hour, not 2 hours. And then, of course, I worked in the fields and the hot and whatever. And so I never let my body rest. And I'm going to tell you, my senior year in high school, I really, when tennis came around, I was the absolute, I was outstanding in tennis. And I had won every game, every doubles game, every singles game. I practiced tennis in my sleep. It meant so much to me because I was supposed to be the state champion. And we got to the region playoffs, and I developed these swollen like tonsils, and I couldn't swallow. And I was like, "What in the world?" Because I'd never had my tonsils taken out. And the first thing Mother looked at it, she says, "Oh my goodness, I just pray that's not mono coming back on you." And so she put me in a car and took me over to Dr. Turner, who was a doctor over in Tipton that we went to when we found we had this kind of thing. My sister and I and the other person that got sick the year before. And I'll never forget him taking that blood test and coming back in there to tell me that I had this mononucleosis and it was not well. I was not well. And he told me, "Joy, if you do these tournaments and go into the state playoffs with what it's going to cost you physically, it could kill you."
Wow.
Because at that point in time, it was already affecting, the glands, your spleen.
Right.
And so I lost the chance to become a state, tennis player and state. I had not lost one game. I'd hardly lost a match, Laura. I mean, I'm
Oh, wow.
telling you, I practiced. I would turn the lights on in my garage, in my mom and dad's garage at night, and play into 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, just hitting the ball back and forth, I mean, I was just that dedicated. I've always been dedicated to what I do. And sure enough, I was a sick child. I mean, I almost, at the end of my school year, I was almost to the
Mono's
point of
a
not
hard
being
thing
able
to
to
Mono's a
graduate
hard
because I was
thing to
so
get
sick.
over too. I mean,
It,
mono. I mean, literally, it's
it is. And so the next year, I got a little bit better. I started playing softball. I got back into basketball. I got a chance to play college basketball, had an opportunity, got into it. And I'm going to tell you, after the basketball season was over, I could not walk from my car to the classroom. I made it back to my car and drove back home, and they took me over to Tifton. And Dr. Turner says, "Man, Joy, you are in a mess. Yes, mono is just right back on you again." And I lost down to about 92 pounds and was bedridden. I was literally bedridden, and they'd have to pick me up and tote me to the bathroom. And I can remember my dad was one of those that, you get up, let's go. He never saw a need for you to sit down. I mean, he was a farmer, and he was like a military drill sergeant. He didn't believe in the word can't or no or whatever. But I was so close to dying that he got on the side of the bed. I'll never forget. I never seen my dad ever do that for anybody else. He got on the side of the bed, his hands and knees. And he sat there and he begged me not to give up, to not give. And I'm going to tell you something. It took months and months and months. And I can remember starting back playing softball that I could hit the ball, Laura, but I could not run from home plate to first base. Mm. The breathlessness. And it took me, they said, now you need to stay out of doing anything major and let your body recuperate. And so I went through about, a 8-month recuperation of trying to get back slowly doing whatever. And then I went back to try to play basketball. And then I absolutely tore my knee up and was in a leg cast from my groin to my ankle for quite a number of months. And so that ended my basketball playing in college. I did make the volleyball team the next year, but then chose not to continue to do that. So, I can really understand when people get in situations and you work so hard for something and something is taken, and I couldn't understand it. I'm like, God, from the time I was young, I mean, I was a cheerleader, a basketball player. I played golf. I played tennis. I ran track. I threw the discus. I did a shot put. Wow. I did low hurdles. There was just everything athletic. I could hit a baseball. I could throw a baseball. I could kick a football further than anybody could kick a football. My dad started teaching me to kick a football when I was a little girl because he was just phenomenal. He had 2 scholarships to do nothing but kick a football for college. So what I'm saying is, when you do that all your life and you've been focused, and he expected me to make straight A's. So along with all this and my music that I was taking, and also playing sports, the expectation was to be the best at it. So right. I'm telling you, instead of drinking and partying and doing all the stuff that other kids do, my boyfriends were dates to go play tennis, golf, racquetball, whatever that was athletic, maybe even hunting and fishing and things of that nature. But I was always very athletic. And so sometimes you work all your life to get to a point of, winning something because you put your time and effort and everything into it, and then have it taken away from you. And it can really rock your little world. It can really rock your little world when you have done everything right. And it just seems like in this world, Satan is after if you do everything right. So I've been down that road. I understand. I guess and I'm trying to share that tonight because I know what you've been through. And I know that there are a lot of people out there, they get mad at God. They say, look, God, I did all this right. I was doing right. I don't cuss. I don't do these kinds of things. I live right. I don't try to hurt anybody. I'm not out there to destroy anybody. I want people to love God. I want them to love me. The whole 9 yards. You're wanting that so bad. But I'm going to tell you, so many times when this happens to Christians, and I'm telling you, I mean, these are just little things that happen to me. And there's a lot more that I could share. You do sometimes go, God, can you hear me? God, are you there? And he is silent, but he is there still in the silence. But what Christians unfortunately do is they go, how could a loving God, knowing that I've done all of this, turn his back on me? And they blame him. And they never stop to think that when Jesus was hanging on that cross, that God literally had to turn his back on his own son to feel the pain of sin and the devil, and to feel it with such terribleness that he was our sacrifice. And what did he do? He could have said, man, I am not doing this. I am not dying for the world. I have not done anything wrong. I have never sinned in my entire life. I mean, something that none of us that's alive today can say. We can never say we've never been a sinner, because we have. We've all sinned. We all come short. But Jesus Christ never, ever sinned. So can you imagine? I mean, I know how I feel about what I've gone through, but can you imagine having never sinned and take the sin that you and I have committed upon him, upon that cross, and God let that happen? So we are blaming, when these things happen to us, so many times we are blaming the wrong entity. It's not God. God is with us the whole time, but it is our choice. Do we blame him for what's happening, or do we blame Satan? And I'm going to tell you, it's Satan every time that's doing these things, because he thinks, I can hit you here, I can hit you another way. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, whenever he gets you usually after three things, or three or four things. It'll be a little something, then it'll be a big something, then it'll be a little something. And then finally, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back that just sends you into orbit. And I know I was listening one time to a preacher on TV, Brother Charles Stanley, who is now passed. And he said, if you really want to know when Satan's going to go after you, remember the word halt. He's going to go after you when you're hungry, when you're angry, when you're lonely, and when you are tired. Mm-hmm. If any time Satan's going to take the chance to go after you, it's going to be during those specific times, and he is going to lay into you. And remember, he was not afraid to go after Jesus Christ. Right. I mean, Jesus was out there fasting in the wilderness, and I want to tell you, if you've never been on a 40-day fast, I have been on a 40-day fast where I did like one small meal in the morning and then only water until it came back to me again. And trying to do 40 days of doing it like that, I will tell you, your weakness, your tiredness, your loneliness, all that you're going through, it wears on you. So Jesus was at his lowest point, and who shows up? Satan. So, you know, I try to remember whenever these things happen to me, and by golly, they have been numerous. Like I said, if I had to start off, it would take hours for me to tell you the stuff that's going on in my life. And many times as a young person, I would go to my mother just crying. Why are they treating me like, why are they doing this? You know, they've never walked in my shoes. They've never lived my life. If they had to walk in my shoes and do what I've done to get to this point, you know, it's just a jealousy thing. And I would be so upset and so crying. I remember she would say, well, Joy, you know, listen not to Satan. He's sitting right here on your shoulder, and he's telling you these bad things. Because I know, you know, my music, Laura, I mean, when I was so sick for those 3 years, I perfected my ability to learn music, to play a guitar, to do better, because I wasn't able to get out and go do like everybody else. I wasn't able to travel. I wasn't able to go to concerts. I wasn't able to do things that normal kids and you know, the end of high school and college get to do, because I was so sick. So picking up a guitar in a bedroom when you're so tired and you can't hardly sit up, and sitting there and practicing your little music and starting to write little songs and stuff, there's where I became able to do what I do, and the hours, you know, the dedication that I had, that only as an option. Or, you know, but That's what I'm saying. It's do you take your situation and make it a stumbling block, or do you take the situation and you make it a stepping stone?
Right.
And in my life, because so much bad happened, I mean, I was very sick as a child when I was born. I mean, I had ear infections. My ears were not right. I had inability to go to the bathroom. I mean, a small child, and they're taking you and stripping you out of your mother's hands, and they're wrapping you in these towels. And I can remember the doors and me screaming. You know, it was absolutely traumatizing, some of the things that I went through as a child. Absolutely. So, you know, I get a lot of things. And I guess it's because God allowed a lot of things. It's like Job, he allowed a lot of things to happen to Job. He has allowed a lot of things to happen to me so that when I see somebody in terrible situations, very handicapped, awful situations, I really have that compassion because many times I have been there. But I just don't go, well, let me tell you about my situation. But tonight, I really wanted to share that because I feel like that because what I have had happen to me, that we learn that our enemy, our adversary, is a being that was once Lucifer in the heavenly realms. He was the first being that God, Creator, made. So, you know, here's God making something. And you know, if God's going to make it, he's going to make it as beautiful and whatever as he could make it. And with the greatest capability, the greatest knowledge, he did that. So this adversary that we are fighting was literally over the angels. He had such capability that he was able to destroy a third of God's angels because he was so jealous of a creator. Here's a created being thinking he could be God, and he's still thinking that. And if he can make us turn against God and blame God for our situations, he'll do to us exactly what he did to a third of the angels. He sent a third of those angels right into the pit of hell because they believed him instead of a creator that created them. And this is what it's all about. When we have to fight these things every day and every second of our lives, we are fighting them for one purpose, our soul. And if we don't stay true to God, Satan, Lucifer is going to take you just like he did a third of those angels right into the pits of hell.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie or sugarcoat it. I was very angry at God for a period of time when this was happening because I didn't understand what was going on.
That's right.
And I was very I was bitter. I was very bitter towards God because I said, you know, everything
right.
that I do, everything that I've done for you, and here I am alone.
That's right. That is so easy. And I've been there. I know that feeling. I know that feeling at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I know how it gnaws at you and your tears. I mean, your pillow is wet and you're crying, God, how could you let this happen? When you know my heart, you know my feelings, you know these emotions are real, you know that they are true, you know that I would never want to do something to destroy and not make it right, covenant wise with you.
Right.
I mean, those kinds of things are very, very difficult. And I have people ask me all the time, they say, well, Joy, how is it that God can allow children to come in this world and be, you know, sexually molested or blown up or killed?
It goes back to the garden, doesn't it? It goes back
It
to
goes
us.
back to the garden.
I mean, God, when he created us to never die, to never
That's
have
right.
pain, to never suffer, to never have any burdens. And it was well, not ours, but it was humanity's fault, you know, that we're in the position we are today. I mean, he wanted us to have the perfect life in the garden, never leave the garden. But unfortunately, we had the fall, and now the consequences of that is sin, and the consequences of sin is death.
That's right. And what people don't understand is the moment that you are born. And I know we celebrate births, and there's a little scripture in the Bible that people say that kind of twist it around, but that we always celebrating somebody's birth, and that we always crying when somebody dies. And clearly that should be the opposite, as long as they are dying and they are a child of God. I mean, if they're going into the heavenly realms, back into paradise, where originally we were created to go as God's children, then there should be celebration. But we are not taught that. We're taught to celebrate when a child comes into this world.
Right.
The other thing is that from the moment that we were born, we are losing cells. We are dying, even though we grow as into maturity and to old age. That child is dying the moment it's born. I mean, you're already in a dying state because cells are flaking off of you. Those cells are dying. And the thing about it is, what people don't stop to think, we live in a fallen world. And so bad things are going to happen. And unfortunately, bad things happen to good people. It rains on the just and the unjust. That's a hard thing for people to get. But our reward is not in this life. Our reward is in the next life. So if a child dies at an early age and they have not reached the age of accountability, they go directly into paradise. So when people cry over that, oh my gosh, their child never had to suffer through sin that could, as they got older into old age, maybe they chose not to follow Jesus or chose something else to have happened to them. They were better off, and nobody ever sees that. Oh, it's a child. They were taken before their time. No. If anything, they were taken out of a world and went right into paradise, and will never have to go through the sinful hurts, just like what you've been through, what I've been through. They'll never feel that. I mean, I would never want my best friend to feel the pains and things that I have been through. So when people cry over children, I'm thinking, you don't realize if that child was a child of God, they don't have to grow up with aches and pains and cancer and heart attacks and drugs and sexual perversions and people, mark of the beast that's coming. I mean, they have bypassed something so terrible, but yet people blame God. How could you do that? How could you date them? How could you do so and so? And people don't understand that the moment that God created all of us, He made a time for you and I to be born, and He made a time for you and I to die. Now, if you go out and you say, I'm mad at God and, I'm ending it all. If it's not your time to go, this is what's going to happen. Let's just say I get mad at God. He's done me wrong. So I see the semi coming down the highway, and I go running out there in front of the semi and go, just splatter me over. In other words, you think you're committing suicide because you hate what's happening to you. And the semi just splatters you, and then the ambulance comes running along, and they put you all back together. And so for the next, let's just say you're 20 years old when that happens. So your date of death is not until in God's plan for you to be 80 years old. So for 60 years, you're going to lay in a bed in that state for doing what you did. It's kind of like when Adam and Eve ate in the garden, they didn't immediately die. Right. There was a time for them to die. But what they did, they had to live with the consequences of what they did. If you ran out in front of the semi and God didn't have it till you were 80 years old to die, you are dealing with your consequences for 60 years. And I've seen that happen. I mean, I had a client years ago that was born a normal little boy, and he had not sinned or done anything wrong. He was outside playing, kicked the soccer ball out into the street, went running out to get the soccer ball, and he was literally completely splattered by a huge semi-truck. He was put back together, and he was totally unable to talk. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't hardly swallow. And that's the way he had to live his life until the day that he dies. Well, some people will say, well, he didn't do anything wrong. Why is he like that? God has a purpose and a plan for all of this. And we understand that from the book of Job. Job was a just man. He did not do anything wrong. And so when Satan come tracking through to God, like, God, he was up there, sporting around. And God said to him, I have a man that I believe really won't do what you can do for me. And so what does Satan say? Well, you got a hedge of protection around him. He's not going to ever see anything. He's got everything. Why should he turn to bad stuff? And God says, I'm going to remove that hedge. You just can't take his life, because our choice is our choices. And Job could have tried to commit suicide. It's what we choose in this life, but he chose not to do that. And then, of course, we know at the end of the book of Job that he was rewarded 7 times what Satan had taken away from him. But it's like in Esau, there's Jacob and Esau has got the inheritance. And so Jacob says, hey, I've got partridge. And so Esau says, I'm so hungry. I'll give you my birthright if you just give me some food. And so Jacob says, well, okay, here's your food. He gets his birthright, because the birthright of Jesus Christ in heaven was not important at all to Esau. And so Esau sold his soul for partridge.
Right.
You look at Judas. He could have said, I got 30 pieces of silver, God, I made a mistake. Jesus would have forgave him. But he sold his soul for 30 pieces of silver. So everybody in this life gets the chance. Do you sell your soul to Satan? And what are you selling it for? Are you selling it for money? Are you selling it for fame, like a lot of Hollywood people do? Are you selling it for stealing? Are you selling it for sex? Are you selling it to get back at somebody? What are you selling your soul? How much is your soul really worth?
I was just going to say, how much is it worth? Because to God, it's priceless.
It's priceless. And he's telling you that you are in his image, that you are created by him to have the choice. Do you want to love him or not? And really, Satan set this all up in heaven, because God made all of them immortal. And then when he did that, when Satan did what he did, Satan had no way to ever be saved again. So he knows he's going to hell, along with the third of the angels that fell with him. They know they're in hell forever and ever and ever. Thank goodness he put us out of the garden as mortal beings before we tried to eat from the tree of life and become immortal, because if we'd have done that and he had not put us out, we would have ended up just like Satan, and all of us would have been in hell forever and ever, because we would have been immortal beings in a fallen state. But thank goodness he didn't let that happen. And so that all of us, each one of us has the opportunity to choose. Do we serve Satan or do we serve God? And how much is our inheritance worth to us? Do we give it up for all this that Satan offers us? And let me just say, hey, Mercedes, skyscrapers, gold, silver, sex, drugs. Oh, you just name it. Satan's got all those little things out there that if it's your Achilles heel because you can't stop drinking, your Achilles heel because you can't start drugging, your Achilles heel if you can't start having, terrible sexual acts and whatever. What is your Achilles heel? And Satan's going to go after it, and he's going to dangle that little carrot. Is it worth to you? Just like the 30 pieces of silver. Can you imagine? Honest to goodness, I know 30 pieces of silver was a lot of money back in those days. But can you imagine? Because when you die, you're going to be alive one place or the other. But can you imagine Judas right now in hell? Going, I walked with the Son of God. I saw his miracles. I saw him raise people from the dead. I heard the voice of God come down on him and say, "Well done, my good son." He was there all the time when all the miracles were going on.
Right.
And he knew him. And all he had to have done was, "Hey, look, God, in this terrible quick moment, 30 pieces of silver just meant the world to me. But I was wrong. Forgive me." He could have done that. And he didn't want it. He went back and he threw it, Adam. But instead of going to Jesus and saying, "I made the worst mistake I could have ever made," he went and hung himself. Can you imagine what he's thinking for all eternity? He is sitting in hell burning and thinking about, "I gave up what I knew to be true. I saw the Son of God. I didn't even have to have the faith that's called on by people that didn't get to see him.
I walked with him. I talked with him. I broke bread with him. I did all these things with him. And then at the end,
I'm sitting
betrayed
in the
him.
gates of hell
Yeah.
because I had so much pride." And what was the thing that Satan has? So much pride. People that don't understand the game that we are living. And that's one of the things that end times is so important, because I think we're getting not to the end of your life. Many people are going to experience the mark of the beast. They're going to experience the second coming. They're going to experience the rapture. We're living in the days the prophets told us about. So it cannot be that far away. So you may not die a natural death, but either way, Jesus is coming back. And it's like I've said so many times, we spend our lives from the time we start to work thinking about our retirement. The other day I was telling this to somebody. I said, you put up all this stuff, you plan it, you got it, whatever, and you are one breath, a breath that you cannot control, because you cannot control when he decides to take you.
Right.
I don't care what kind of machine you got near you. When he decides to take you, that last breath, that one breath, you are stepping into eternal retirement. And what have you done to prepare for that? We put up money, we do this, we go to college for the kids, we want to do all these kind of things. We got all this money all around us for our retirement. But what are you doing? What are you putting in place? Because money's not going to be there. Your cars, your houses, your whatever that you think so important right now is not going to be a part of that. If you are not laying up your crowns in heaven, then you're missing out. Because as Christians and people who follow Jesus, your reward is going to be based on the things that you did that were like him. Unforgiveness is something that most people in the churches do not practice. They carry a grudge. They hate each other. They're constantly doing, and I'm going to tell you, that one sin, unforgiveness, is going to get more Christians than anybody or anything else. It says, it clearly says, if you're not willing to forgive your brother, who is your brother in Christ, we're all brothers and sisters. And when we get to heaven, there's no marriages and none of that. No mamas and dads. You're going to remember them, but you're going to be a brother and a sister. And if you don't forgive and forget it, in other words, you can't go, "Yeah, I forgive you," and tomorrow bring it up again. And I forgive you, and then tomorrow bring it up again. If you forgive somebody, you got to forgive it and forget it. Because Jesus, when he says, I've taken your sins there at the cross, I have forgiven you, he doesn't go, "Well, tomorrow, Joy, you did this back then." He's already given us the blessing of forgiveness. He doesn't bring it up. That's how you become whiter than snow. That's how you become a pure virgin when you walk into the gates of heaven with him. You have been washed clean. All your sins are forgiven. They're not brought up again. He doesn't say, Joy, when you were 2 years old and you took that pencil off that desk because you didn't have a pencil. He's not doing that. And if you continue to bring up a person's past over and over and hit them with it again and again, you are not forgiving them. There's been many people in my life that I could go back and say, well, you did this and you did that and whatever. But if I'm going to be forgiven and I want to be forgiven, I want to make it into paradise. And I want Jesus to be standing there to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. You did exactly what I asked you to do. If you had been mistreated, somebody mistreated you, whatever, you asked for forgiveness and you gave them forgiveness. You didn't bring it up anymore. You didn't punish a person over and over and over to get back at them or hurt them. You were like Jesus. It's gone. It's forgiven. That is a very hard thing to do. And there's a lot of Christians that are claiming that they are going into the gates of heaven, that I'm going to tell you, if you have got somebody that's done you wrong, and they've asked you for forgiveness and you have not forgiven them and you keep blowing it up in their face, I'm going to tell you, God's going to say, about all them things that you've done all your life, when you get to St. Peter's gate, he's going to say, depart from me. I never knew you, because you can't forgive and I'm not forgiving you. And scripture is as clear as it can be. So I'm speaking to Christians right now. There is a lot of churches filled up with a lot of people who are hating their brother. And
Joy,
you're going to go in hell. You're going to go to hell for doing it.
Joy, you're actually speaking to me right now.
You got to forgive.
Yeah.
Everything. You can't bring it up. You can't play it in your mind. You can't go back. We can't go back a second ago and change anything. The only thing I can say a second ago to you right now is forgive me. And if you're forgiving me, then whatever I said a second ago is gone. That's how it works in God's eyes.
Right.
And God tells us, if we are going to be like him and we are going to spend eternity with him, he expects us to walk the walk and talk the talk. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. And I've heard people say, well, I'm going to forgive him, but I'm not ever going to forget. That is Satan all over again, because who is your accuser?
Satan.
Satan. And if you have asked God for forgiveness, it's Satan that brings it up to you. Remember when so-and-so did so-and-so?
Right.
What you've got to do when Satan throws that in your mind, remember they were the ones that dropped you off and didn't pick you back up and they did this or whatever. If you allow Satan to play that mind game with you, he is destroying you, so that thought process of unforgiveness now is in a different realm. And once you pull that back to you, it says in scripture, if you turn and look back, you're not worthy of the kingdom of heaven. You're supposed to be focusing, walking toward God. And if Satan can get you to look back, and what did he do to Lot's wife? Those angels said, Lot, you and your girls and your wife are to walk out of Sodom and Gomorrah and not look back.
Yeah.
But Lot's wife did. And what happened to her? She looked back because she remembered there was something there that she kind of liked. There was something that drew her back. And it turned her in a pillar of salt, and she died instantly and went into the gates of hell, right with all them people that was back there in Sodom and Gomorrah. So we have been taught in Scripture to let it go. You cannot, and even let's just look at Cain. When God came to Cain, he knew that he had already killed Abel, because Abel's blood is alive. It's got vibrational frequency that I talk about in that book, Be Smart. His DNA in the blood was literally had a song in it that was singing to God, okay? So when he came up, God came up to Cain, he looked at him and says, where's thy brother Abel? He already knew, but he was giving Cain the opportunity to tell him the truth.
Right.
And Cain looked at him and said, am I my brother's keeper? Like, I don't really know. I don't care. Am I my brother's keeper? Right there, Cain sold his soul for a lie. And the Creator knew it. Right. And he told him, you know, your wrath, you continue to do what you're doing, and Satan has you. And that's exactly what Cain did. He never asked for forgiveness. He never said, God, I made a mistake.
Right.
I got upset because you didn't like what I gave to you. And literally, Cain gave when he wanted to from what his abundance was. Abel did as we are told, to give our tithes, the first fruits, to God. You know, you give him your first fruits. Abel had done what he was supposed to do. Abel was a good man. He'd done nothing wrong. But because God said, well, Abel, I accept yours, but Cain, I don't, because you gave it when you wanted to give it. Then Cain kills Abel out of jealousy. Cain sold his soul for jealousy.
And he was too proud, I think. And I think that's the downfall of a lot of people, is that we're so, pride gets in the way.
Well, that's what happened with Satan. Pride got in his way. It threw him out of heaven. That's what happened with Judas. He knew he had done wrong, or he wouldn't have gone back to the people and thrown those 30 pieces of silver at him. He knew he had done wrong, but instead his pride drove him to hang himself, and now he's sitting in hell going, how close was I to heaven? I was sitting, touching the Son of God, and I just sold him for 30 pieces of silver that I didn't even get to go buy me a new horse with.
Mm-mm.
I mean, our what we have in this world, I keep telling people over and over, there is nothing in this world that is worth your inheritance in heaven. Nothing. You can't take a thing with you. Your family's not worth it. Your children are not worth it. Your job is not worth it. Your Mercedes is not worth it. Your DeLorean is not worth it. Your palace, Taj Mahal is not worth it. There's no gold worth it.
Yeah. Material world is our downfall, I think, a lot of the times, because people give credit to the wrong things.
They do, and they don't realize, and that's one thing about this End of Days book that I've written, this Be Smart book, is to show you that if you choose the physical world, the wealth, the sex, the drugs, all the stuff that it has to offer, you're going to end up in the gates of hell, and you're going to end up there as an immortal being, because at the end, when you're brought up before the throne of judgment, you're put in a resurrected body that lasts forever and ever and ever. But while you're waiting for that judgment, if you die, you're going to be just like we're talking about, Judas sitting down there just burning and burning. You're going to be just like the thief. I mean, not the thief, but the thief that chose not to choose Jesus, and the one that did ended up in paradise. And you're going to be like that thief going, I was right there on the cross next to him, and instead of me saying, help me and believe, I told him, why don't you take yourself down? An attitude, that was prideful. And if you think about it, even in the story of Lazarus and the rich man had died. And it says, this is a parable that Jesus told. That rich man, his body was laying out in a grave somewhere, his physical body, waiting to be reunited to it when the great throne of judgment is. But he was already in hell. He was in his physical body. I mean, his physical body was out there in the grave. His spiritual body and his soul, his mind, who he is, was down there in hell. Because my book explains that. The spirit and your soul never die. There's nowhere in Scripture it tells you that ever dies. So he's sitting down there and he's burning because the physical body doesn't have to be on your body to burn. The spiritual body can burn too. So he's down there and he's feeling those flames, but he's not being consumed. He's just like Moses in the burning bush. You know, that bush was burning, but it wasn't consumed. So here is the rich man down there, and he's just burning and burning, and he's begging Father Abraham, please let Lazarus dip his finger in water and cool my tongue. But what does Father Abraham say? Well, look, Lazarus is up here. I mean, he had a tough life on this earth, but he chose to follow me. He did the right stuff, even though he didn't have good. He begged from tables, and you weren't good enough to even try to help him out. Okay, you had opportunity, but you didn't do that. You didn't feed the ones that needed to be fed and care for the people. You were too busy in your own welts to care about other people. So he is comforted, and you are in hell. And what does Lazarus say? Father God, please send somebody to tell my family up there that this hell is terrible. I don't want them to come here. And Father Abraham says, you had the same choice that they got. They get to see the prophets. They have a man, Jesus Christ, that's going to die for them to save them. And everybody's got the choice. So raising you from the dead is not going to change anything. They've all got the choice. And, you know, we have people all the time who have near-death experiences that see hell that I've taught with, and they don't do anything wrong because they know it's real and they don't ever want to go back there. But they can get up in front of a church and talk about near-death experience and what they've said. And you've got people that are sitting there going, oh, that ain't real. Doubting, not trusting, not thinking that, you know, there is a heaven and there is a hell. There's no in between. And suffering in that hell is as real as you and I on this earth in pain. Except there, you can't end it. Where at least on earth, if you get so bad, you know, your body dies and you get out of the pain like that until you end up in hell. If you get out of the pain, you're going to go to heaven. You have no more pain. But when you get out of that pain here, you set yourself right up if you're in hell to go right into a worse situation. And it's consistent. It never dies. The worm never dies, it says in hell. It will always eat on you, but not consume you. You will feel the pain. You will feel the suffering. And some people think, oh, well, it says it's in darkness. The darkness is that you don't have any hope. You don't have any love. Those are the light of Christ. He is the light of love and hope and faith and good and long suffering and pureness. That's the light. In hell, it is burning and burning and burning with no hope of ever seeing or feeling love or escape again. And it's forever and ever and ever and ever. So this little time from like zero from the time you're born up until maybe 120 years, if you get to live to be 120 years old, is a time period that God's given you to make your choice. It's not about your wealth. It's not about who you are. It's not about what you achieve. It's not about any of that. You know, it's about telling your fellow man about Jesus. It's about living your life and walking the good walk. It's about telling the truth and not lying, because it says if you lie, you're of your father, the devil. If you want to live to go to be in paradise, it says, Jesus says, follow me. And if you're not following him, and not saying that you can't have wealth, I'm not saying that you can't be wealthy. If you work hard and you do those things and you get paid for what you do, that's fine. But if it becomes your God, if it's everything is just God, you know, I don't have time for God because I got to go to work. I don't have time for God because I got to do this. I don't have time for God because I got to do that. You're putting everything before God. And it says in Scripture, God says in the commandments, have no other gods before you. And if you choose wealth, if you choose sex, if you choose adultery, if you choose fornication, if you choose homosexuality, whatever you choose that's before him, that's what you sold your soul for. That's your 30 pieces of silver. We are here And I'm thankful because I know in my lifetime I have made some dumb choices. Like, why did I do that, Lord? And I'm thinking, today I was thinking that I said, Lord, thank you so much for not taking my life during these times in my history of living on this planet, because I either had made a bad choice or didn't see the evil that it was doing to my soul. And thank goodness you've given me the length of time you've given me to know the truth so that I can make those right choices every day of my life, so that when I do go to be with you, whether it is through a rapture or whether it is through death, that when I close my eyes or am raptured, when it happens, I'm standing right there with you. I mean, literally. That is what I want, because that is forever and ever and ever. And this time here on earth is just worth a drop in the bucket. I can't think of anything in my life. And I've been blessed. I have some nice things that I have in my life. But they can't go in the casket with me. Right. They can't go in a rapture with me. I really like my shirt that I have on tonight, but it's not going with me. You know what I'm saying? I kind of like these glasses. They're not going with me. So there's nothing that I want to choose on this planet that is more important than Jesus. So when it says, are you willing to give up this and follow me? Are you willing to give up sex and follow me? Are you willing to give up money and follow me? Are you willing to give up homosexuality and follow me? Are you willing to give up money, job, opportunity, fame, and fortune, and follow me? Are you willing to put him first? And that's the choice. That's why we're here. That is why we're here. That's the only reason we are here. And it's some of us get a longer chance at getting the chance to understand that. And then some people, they die when they're 18 years old and they bust hell wide open because they just didn't choose right. So after the age of accountability, death is real.
And
it happens.
Is the age of accountability that's 8 years old, or is that dependent on a child?
They used to say 12 when I was young. They used to say 12. But the age of accountability is the moment you realize you've done wrong.
Yeah.
So if you realize that you were doing something wrong at the age of 6, you already have a knowledge that you did wrong. You can remember as children, we would be playing, and I can remember like little kids running around. They would be naked in the yard and just playing. Nobody, it'd be little boys and girls, and they weren't thinking sex. There was nothing bad going on. But the moment that you knew, Mama told me not to do this, and I did it, and she had to come in and spank you. When you were getting to the point, like, don't eat that cookie now while I'm out of the room because you've got supper coming up, and you watch her leave and you take that cookie and you eat it. Right there is when you know that you have chosen to do wrong. And then she comes back in and catches you with it and spanks you. Then you have that guilt, I got caught. Now, some people get better and better at not getting caught, and they get on into adulthood and it becomes a game. Like, what can I do to you and do behind your back so that I don't get caught? The problem is they're already caught and they don't understand it. Whether I catch you or not, God has already caught you. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's unfortunate that people really think that they can hide things from God. My new book tells you there is nothing you can hide from God, because your body, it's got this vibrational frequency that is sound, light, and frequency. And sound, light, and frequency are words and thoughts and all these things. That's why he knows every hair on your head, because it has frequency in it. If you take a strand of hair and go outside and look at it in the sun, it will have like colors of the rainbow in it. It's like you cannot run, you cannot hide from God. You can't play the game of, I can do this today. And a lot of people, unfortunately, it's once saved, always saved. And, I come from the background of Southern Baptist. And I've heard this all my life. Once saved, always saved. You're
Mhm.
saved. You're saved. You can't ever fall. Whatever. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Judas is a perfect example. King Saul is the perfect example. They literally were living as Christians. They were chosen by Jesus. They walked with God. You know, and to think that they both did not end up in hell, really? Once saved, always saved? Absolutely not. You have got to walk that walk all the time. And I will tell you, if you are really saved, when you mess up, you're going to get this guilt feeling and you will want to get it right then. You will want to get on your knees. You'll want to get in prayer. You'll want to ask for forgiveness. And if you do it the way you should do it, you got tears in your eyes because you're fervently meaning it. And that's where the difference is when people go, oh, well, God, I just fell off the wagon and I went out and had binge drinking tonight.
Yeah. There's a
And
difference between apology and being sorry.
big time
The
difference.
the difference is one, it's just words without change. You could sit there, you could tell me you're sorry all you want, but if you do it to me again, that's a pattern.
It is. And if you keep bringing it up and doing it and
Yeah.
doing it and doing it, and you keep saying, well, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me,
Yeah,
God,
what is the
God,
cutoff?
God will forgive you when you fervently ask Him. But it also says in Scripture, if you return to your vomit like a dog, and that's a bad way to explain it.
Right.
But if you're already, let's just say you're already committing all these sins, and you come to God and you ask for forgiveness, and He is forgiving you, and you're begging, and you turn back and return to your vomit. I mean, that's how, to me, that's like, oh. But what it is, it's so bad because you're returning back to the sin. Do you think then that God's going to say, well, 2 days before you asked me for forgiveness, and I'm not going to look at it like that? I don't think so. I don't think so. And people who believe that and believe that they can keep going out and doing wrong and coming in and there's lay down at night and say, Father, forgive me. And they go through these same little prayers every night. Father, forgive me. Father, forgive me. That
I
is
used
just
to
lip
when I was
service,
a
and God knows better.
exactly. When I was a Catholic, and I'm not gonna get on the Catholics because but when I was a Catholic, it was a joke that you could go out and do whatever you wanted during the week, and then on Saturday you went to confession and you had your sins forgiven, and then you went out and you started your week again, and if you sinned, you sinned, and you just asked. It's like it was a cycle, But I don't think that holds a person accountable because, like any good father, when is enough enough? I mean, you can't expect to be forgiven every single time, can you?
No, and like you said, a normal. I mean, I can imagine my dad. One time was bad enough, or you suffer, but um, most people, if they make a mistake, a father, a mother, or if as an employer, if somebody made a mistake and they came to me and they said, "Joy, look, I know I did wrong. I really messed up." And they were fervently crying and
Mhm.
asking me to forgive them. Please give them another chance, whatever. Most times in those situations, people will give you another chance. But let's just say that you go out and wreck the car every night because you're drunk.
Right.
After a while, I would be like, okay, kid, apparently you don't mean this because you're going right back out every night, getting drunk and wrecking the car.
Mhm.
Because if you really meant it, you wouldn't do that anymore.
That's what I mean,
You would
an
literally
apology, it's
change.
nothing without change. You have to
That's
change
right.
the ways and really have a change of heart. I mean, somebody said to me once that with the once saved, always saved, that which I don't believe in, by the way.
Mm-mm.
Um, but that the reason they said it was they believed in it was because if you truly were saved, you wouldn't have sinned again in the first place. You know what? That is putting yourself up for failure.
Right. Because we know we live in a fallen world. We know we're always going to be tempted. We know that every day we are filled with temptations and we make wrong choices. And sometimes even our thoughts, let's just say, Jesus said, if you think lustful about a woman, listen, for a guy, they look and there comes this woman by in a bikini
Mm-hmm.
and they get a lustful thought, it says you've already committed that sexual act,
Right.
even though you have not physically and I've heard people say, oh, I don't, I'm
Oh,
not
I didn't
committed
cheat. I didn't
adultery.
cheat on you. There wasn't anything physical.
Oh,
We didn't.
but
No.
In God's
Mhm.
eyes, right then was the sin. So there's different things. Like, if, for example, if you're talking to your best friend or talking to somebody and gossip gets in the middle of something and it causes that person, that whatever you said, for that person to take a different opinion, or you're putting somebody down and it's destroying somebody, then you sinned right there. And I know sometimes, for example, everybody has a newborn baby and they're all going, no, they're so pretty. They're just so cute, and you're going to yourself, that is the ugliest baby that I've ever seen. And so do you go, oh my gosh, they're just beautiful. Well, that's, when you can say, well, I just told a little bit of a white lie. No,
There's
what you
no such thing
did
as a white lie. I'm
was a lie.
sorry.
It was a lie. So it's better not to put yourself into telling any kind of story, It's better just to be honest. And I'm not saying, go, that's the ugliest baby I've ever seen. But you can say other things like, how wonderful to be a new mother, what this is going to be like to have a child growing up. And I know this means you can still say things that will benefit that person instead of making them believe something that clearly is not true. And you've allowed that to come out of your mouth like that. It's like people who deny a handicapped person because they're handicapped. You've got to be able, can you find to make that a better situation instead of just throwing ugly at them? You don't have to. You can make things better in all situations if you look at it like Jesus would look at it. And I remember there used to be these bands that you could wear that said, what would Jesus do?
Mm-hmm.
And if you really, everything that you do, if you stop and think, what would Jesus do right now? If you just take a moment instead of reacting and go, what would Jesus do right now? You can learn to gauge yourself to do better and right things. And so that's when you take captive your thoughts. And it's always telling us in scripture, take captive your thoughts, because I hate to say it, and I know Joyce Myers wrote a book called Battleground of the Mind, but that's really true. If Satan can't get you physically, he's going to get you in your thoughts. So your thoughts, in your quiet time, lashing out at somebody or cursing out somebody in your closet, I'm sorry, those words are coming out of your mouth. It's hatred in your heart. The person might not be hearing it, but who is going to judge you? That person's not going to judge you. The man upstairs is, and he has heard everything you have said. So it's a shame that people don't understand the seriousness of this right here, their mouth and their heart and their mind. Because those three things have a lot to do with whether you're going to make it to heaven or not. And it's simple. It's a simple thing. What are you right now selling your soul for? What's your 30 pieces of silver? And I think about that today when I do stuff. I'm like, I used to put it in my mind that Satan was like a rattlesnake and you could hear him go, because with rattlers, they kind of rattle. And I said, if you went to let's just say you went to get drunk and you go down to the bar and you're sitting there and everybody's laughing and carrying on. And so you're starting to get your drinks. And all of a sudden, if you could hear in your mind, when you go to pick up that drink to turn it up, if you could hear that rattle, you're holding in your hand your destruction. It's kind of like, I know the Left Behind series, they did one of their last movies that I saw. And, in that movie, they had this guy that was a pilot, and he was having an affair with a young girl, and his wife and his children were at home. And oh, this young girl she was in, and she had her little fur on, and she was just young and beautiful. And his wife was very dedicated, a good looking little woman, and she was dedicated to the family, and she was a Christian. But oh, he was the pilot, he could get the girls, and they were all like, whatever. And so this little girl, boy, she was just beautiful. He comes home and he can't find his wife and his child. And he realizes that he's been left behind, that they are gone, and that if you get left behind, here we go into the battle of Armageddon and hell fire, brimstone. And so the doorbell rings, and I don't know whoever came up with this idea, but it was perfect for people to think about. The doorbell rings, and he opens the door, and there's that little woman. She's just so pretty and just whatever in that little, fur coat. And all of a sudden, he doesn't see that. He sees Satan standing there going, I got you, and you're going to hell with me over this. Do you think for 1 minute that they are having sex and fun in hell? I've always said, you need to go to a cancer ward and hear people screaming at the top of their lungs because they can't stand the pain. The last thing they're going to have on their mind is some little beauty in a little sexy outfit in that kind of pain. I've never seen anybody in that kind of pain want anything other than the pain to stop. So, can you imagine being in hell with her and knowing that you chose that as your 30 pieces of silver to spend eternity burning in pain, suffering? You won't be looking at her for no sex. You'll be hating her guts with everybody there will hate each other. And anybody that led you down that primrose path, making you think this is going to be one great opportunity to have sex or enjoy drugs, or y'all going to hate each other with a passion, because the pain will be so bad that when you look at them and instead of choosing Jesus, I chose you as my 30 pieces of silver. I don't think anybody thinks about that.
I don't think so either. I mean, because I think if they did, and more people thought like that, there'd be a lot less of a lot of sin.
A lot of cheating. I think when it came to it, it would be like, and that was the first thing that I started doing, that when things that I liked to do that I thought maybe it was keeping me from doing more for God, when they would come into my life, I would make myself go, I can hear the rattle.
Mm-hmm.
And, it would make me just back away, because I would know this is putting this before God. So is this more important than my inheritance? I mean, we're talking about inheritance that is forever, that's beautiful, no pain, no sickness, no crying. Everybody's happy, everybody's loving, everybody's kind, everything's perfect. I can't think of anything on this earth that's more precious than that. So that's when I first started going. It's like when I was younger, I did not realize that I was allergic to caffeine. And so I had a lot of problems because I was allergic to caffeine. And so, they told me, the doctor said, no, well, don't drink a Coca. And I love Coca-Cola and sweet tea in South Georgia. I mean, when you're a Georgian, you love your iced tea, child, with all the ice and the sugar and the whole 9 yards. So I grew up like that, and I didn't realize that it was really killing me. It was making my heart go into like 120 beats a minute. And I was an athlete. So then if I went out after I had a Coca-Cola or something, my heart would be beating so hard that sometimes you couldn't, if you were listening for your heart, you couldn't even feel it. It was like it was going so fast. So they told me, the doctor said, they told mother that don't allow her to have anything that had caffeine in it. And then after a month, we're going to reintroduce that. Lori, I do without my iced tea, and I love I think it was called Swanee Swifty Ices, which I love to go get in the afternoon after a good, ball practice. And that Coca-Cola and that IC was like, oh, it was so good. So I had to give up all that. And so after a month, they reintroduced me. Hey, here's a Coca-Cola, and there's nothing better than a Coca-Cola and putting the peanuts in it. After you've been working out in the tobacco field, whoa, we get to go down to the store and get that. They used to say RC Cola and a moon pie, but I'd get a Coca-Cola and put those peanuts in it, the salted peanuts. Oh, and it would foam up and be so good. Anyway, so you can have your Coca-Cola. So I was like, yes, finally. Turned that thing up, and within seconds, my heart was beating so hard they had to take me to the emergency room.
Oh my gosh.
And you know what? People say, how is it you can do without caffeine? I can't get up in the morning and I can't get going. I can't have my coffee. I got to have this, that, and the other. And I said, because when I look at that, I remember how that almost killed me. And I didn't realize it was slowly killing me. So,
I don't think people realize that.
I look at it, that like little rattle. You couldn't give me that to drink because I see that it was slowly killing me, and that's what.
And I don't think, and I think that's what sin does. That's what sin does to people. I mean, it's like it incrementalizes us. We start out with little things, and it just keeps growing because we get more confident, we get more, we get better at lying, or we get better at doing this, and we get better at doing that, and it just becomes second nature, and people don't realize that is literally killing you.
It's killing you. It's slowly killing you.
Slowly killing you.
If they had not figured that out, it would have slowly killed me because it would have kept my heart at such a high beat that my heart would have exhausted itself. And I'm sure a lot of athletes that have the same condition I do, and they've got these drinks now that just packed full of caffeine.
Oh, I know.
If I had drank one of those, I would have died. So
my son drinks those.
I really think that a lot of young athletes that are dying on the ball fields and stuff, it's because they've taken something like that and their heart just exploded, which mine would have done. And so this, like you said, it's like sin. It builds up in your body, but it's slowly killing you. And when you pull away from it, then you see how bad it is. Because when it was reintroduced, it was horrible, horrible, horrible. So, once you see how horrible sin is and you hear the rattle of it, you won't partake of it because you're like, absolutely not, Satan. Never again. And that's how you know when you become really a saved person, is that you are taking that moment and you are really seeing Satan for what he is. He's not a little red guy holding a little pitchfork with his little horns sticking up.
No, he's everything you've ever wanted.
Exactly.
Wrapped up in a little package.
And we have talked about what the Antichrist. I mean, we've done that on your show many times. People, that Antichrist is not coming looking like we portray him at Halloween. He is the most charismatic, wonderful, helpful, loving, whatever person.
He can't come on the world scene, throwing lightning bolts and killing everyone. Yeah, he's got to come in. Yeah, he's going to love bomb people. He's going to be the epiphany of a narcissist. He's going to love bomb the people. And then he's going to, you're going to go through the steps, and people that are awake and they see these things they're going to know. They're going to know it.
That's right. Well, and that's why it's so important. I'm like you. I really believe that you and I have gone through some really bad things to keep us from putting out shows like this. You're not going to hear this on most TV evangelists because so many people in big churches, they don't want to hear, you don't need to be drinking. You don't need to be using prescription drugs wrong. They don't want to hear that lust is a problem. They don't want to forgive their fellow man. And most of the preachers in those churches are not going to go after what we're talking about tonight because, oh my gosh, we have this mega church and I need your tithes. And if I need your butt, mad,
I convict you of your sins, you're not going to come back.
That's right.
Exactly.
There's where the problem is in
that's
the
exactly the
church.
problem.
And
Yes.
then the people who are lost are just doing their thing and they're not having any problems. And Satan is taking them straight into the gates of hell.
Well, they go to church and there's no repercussions for what they've done. They go there, their preacher tickles their ears and tells them what they want to hear and tells, yeah. I mean, okay, let's take for instance Paula White.
Yes.
Paula White happens to be Trump's spiritual advisor, and I've had a problem with that since the very beginning in his first administration.
Me too.
Paula White is married to Jonathan Cain, who is a member of the band Journey.
Yes.
And she and Jonathan stood up in front of her congregation and told her congregation that as long as you watched pornography with your spouse, it was okay. Are you kidding me?
That's right, because it is a spirit. It is a spirit that will attach to you.
Absolutely.
All of that stuff, all sinful stuff is a spirit that can attach to you. And if you ever get attached to it, it's no different than somebody gets attached to cocaine,
Yep.
or to drinking or to drugs or to smoking. You can't get away from it, and it draws you in to do more. And the problem is when you allow in a marriage, you have to understand those people. And I had friends that are celebrities. I was around people who were celebrities. They do so much makeup. They paste and they fix. And when you see all of that, it is perfect.
Right.
It's like every muscle is perfectly defined and whatever. It is fake. And so, you know, people get their breast implanted and all these kinds of things. It's not real.
No.
You know, it's all fake. And so what are you really engaging in when you do that? It's a fantasy, but it draws you into other fantasies, into
It
other
leads
things.
into other things. It desensitizes you, and then you have to move on to something different and something more exciting and something, you know. And the fact that she stood up there and led her congregation to believe that it was okay is disgusting to me.
Well, you know, the thing about it is when you're the sexual act in itself is sacred. That's
Right.
why God married Adam and Eve. That's why the problem in the garden happened. And that's when the whole thing got messed up, was over a sexual situation. When you bring somebody else into your relationship or into a marriage as a third person, whether it be a real third person or a third party that you're watching,
Right.
all of a sudden, if that person is, let's just say, not fulfilling something with you, and you're like jealous of this or allowing that to fulfill you, then you are playing a game with what God created. God created sex for married people only. And we haven't been taught that enough growing up about what happened in the garden and why a man and a woman are brought together in holy matrimony for the purpose of a sexual encounter.
And again, the Bible is clear that it says you don't have to have a sexual act to be an adulterer. It's the thought. If you've already thought it in your mind, and of course you're thinking of, you know, when you're watching that and it's you're letting that into your eyes, you are committing a sin.
And the thing about it is,
against your spouse.
That's exactly right. And the thing about it is, and the reason you know that you're committing a sin, because you're having some erotic situation happening within your body that tells you that watching that is affecting you.
Right.
So there
and, you
is
know, and it's
so
not
much bad.
And it's not just that, but there are so many things in the world nowadays that are gateways. I mean, these things, these sexual immoralities, these it's not just that opens up these doors to these spiritual attacks. It's alcohol, it's cigarettes, it's drugs, it's sex, it's you know.
I mean, you can use yoga. yoga,
just
bringing the serpent out the
whatever
spine.
whatever it is that you've got in your life, you have to, if you go through a spiritual attack, you have to look at your entire life and you have to figure out, where did this come into my life? How did I let this
That's
come
right.
into my life? What can I do to make sure that not only I get rid of it, but it never comes back?
That's
And you
right.
have to really, and it forces you to take an inventory of your entire existence and figure out what, and take responsibility for it,
That's right.
because you can't blame somebody else for that door being opened. You can't.
No,
You
you're
allowed
gonna.
it.
That's right. You're gonna stand before God, and you can't say, "Well, my
Well, he
husband
did
made me
it.
do it,"
Yeah.
or "My best friend told me it was okay,"
Yeah.
or "This lady told me it was okay to do this, and you should do that against your wife." I
Right.
mean, all that kind of stuff. God's not gonna want to hear because He
Mhm.
already knows what you've done. When
He
you stand
knew
before
when
Him,
Adam and Eve, he
sinned.
knew. He didn't have to, they didn't have to tell him. He already knew. Just like, when we think that we're getting away with something because
Never do.
we've closed the blinds and we've shut the door, or I'm going to eat this cookie, and nobody's in the kitchen. Nobody's going to see. God sees
That's right.
everything.
That's right.
He knows
Everything,
everything.
everything. And there's no justification for
None.
anything that's wrong. I mean,
Nothing.
even like I was talking about, there's really no justification in telling a person they got a beautiful baby if they don't. There is really no justification. And is your soul worth telling that
Just say nothing at
story?
all.
Yeah, or be kind, or say,
Or
"Can I hold the baby to let you go do something?" I mean,
right.
there are ways for you to be good and kind and whatever. God made all of us uniquely different. He was proud of us the way He made us, and He sees us because we're in His image. And
Mhm.
where people think, well, this is good looking or that's good looking, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know that from years ago. We used to put on beauty contest, and it was a big thing. It was a fundraiser, and of course, many times I was asked to be a judge. So the beauty that I might have seen in a person was not that she was number 10 in a bathing suit, a Bo Derek number 10, but when she answered questions, her grace, there was beauty in that. And so, you can't judge a book by its cover. And that was one thing my mother always taught me. Do not ever judge a book by its cover. When I was a little girl, my mother worked in the bank, and my sister and I were always like involved in stuff, and they always wanted us to sell like candy to make
Right.
money for the organizations, whether it be Girl Scouts, whatever. And so we would go in there and we go, "Mama, who's the wealthiest man in the bank? Because we want to sell this whole box of candy to one person." And she would look at us and she would say, we said, "Well, that man looks like he's driving a Mercedes." And she'd say, "Girls, I want to teach you something. The person that's the wealthiest probably is driving a little bitty tore up vehicle.
Right.
And don't ever judge a book by its cover, because that guy driving that Mercedes probably owes the bank hundreds of millions of dollars." So you can't always look at a situation and assume it to be that way. And I'm thankful that I had a mother that gave me tidbits of information, because it always let me look at what is unique about that person. What is them? And that's why I was able to do so good with handicapped people. When they came in, they were Down syndrome. I didn't put all Down syndromes in the same little box.
Mhm.
I looked at Bill and Martha and Susie, different from each other, just like snowflakes. Even though they had the look of Down syndrome, they each had different capabilities. And what could I do to bring out their best in this one, in this one, and in this one, to make their lives better? If I'd have put them in a box and said that's the way they are, won't want to do anything else, you can't. Everybody is uniquely different, but we are all children of God, and we are brothers and sisters, and we are put here to encourage each other, to show the way, and to follow Jesus. And if you will do that, and you sincerely put your heart into it, you will one day hear Jesus go, enter in, my good and faithful servant.
Right.
If you don't do it his way, the Bible talks, this is something that, when I realized this, the Bible talks more about hell than it does about heaven. So he's trying to warn his children how serious all of this really is. And people are not taking it serious. Like you said, the thought of it can convict you into the gates of hell. And nobody can be used as an excuse. Well, the devil made me do it, like Flip Wilson. Yeah, the devil's danging that carrot. But do you want to look at that carrot, or do you want to keep your eyes on God? And we know that if we keep our eyes on God, that he'll save us. Think about when Jesus was standing out, walking on the water. Peter was in the boat, and all that wind was going on, but there's Jesus out. They thought he was a spirit, and they realized he wasn't. It was really him. And so Peter said, bid me come out there. Did Jesus say, well, no, Peter, you're crazy. Do you think you can walk on water? You're not me. He said, come. And what did Peter do? He got out of that boat and he was walking on that water, because what did he do? He had his eyes focused on God. But then all of a sudden, them waves and the wind got to rocking him, and he turned to look. And when he did, he took his eyes off God and he started to sink. And what did Jesus do? He said, help me, Lord. And he reached down and pulled him up and put him back in the boat. So when we take our eyes off of God, if we clearly say, help me, Lord, fervently, he'll pull us out of that muck, out of that sin, and set us back up again. But you can't keep getting out of the boat and not keep it. If he'd kept his eyes on God, he'd have walked out there and stood out there with him and not had a problem whatsoever. And if we will keep our eyes on God, we'll be able to go into the gates of heaven. We won't have a problem at all. We'll go right into the gates of heaven. But if we keep choosing to go and look back and re-engage in that vomit that we said to God, forgive me for doing the night before, and you keep doing that, he is going to let you have that vomit for the rest of your life in the gates of hell. And that will be something I can't even imagine choosing something and knowing that God was real, like Judas. Okay? I can't even imagine what torture of just knowing, not only the burning, not only the worms eating on you and the gnawing and the whatever, but I just can't imagine the mindset of knowing you were that close to heaven.
Talk about eternal regret.
Can you imagine? Lord, I do not ever want that. So, I've had to go, like I mentioned, that's why I wanted to explain how some of the things I've been through. And I can honestly say there were times when I wanted to give up. I can understand why you want to blow your brains out and get out of it. I've been to all of them places. But thank goodness, God allowed me to see that wasn't worth paradise.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I was very bitter. I was very angry at God. I was not in a good place, and alone doesn't help the matters any. And I feel like I've fought the battle of my life this last year.
Well, it's like I said, that
I won. So.
When he got you, it's hungry, angry, lonely, and tired.
Yeah.
And I will honestly say, when he gets me the worst is when I'm lonely, because when you're lonely and you're alone, Satan hits you.
Mm-hmm.
He's after your mind.
Your guard is down.
And your guard is totally down. It's totally down. And I know some people will tell me they're just so lonely, and I'll just say, look, I don't sleep half the night. I've never been in fact, I was born late at night, and I've always been a late night person. Anyway, a night owl. I like doing research at night. My best research is at night. I like to exercise at night, things that people don't even love to do.
Exactly.
I like to do that. And so many times if they say, well, I just don't have anybody to talk to and I'm just lonely, I'll say, if you get to feeling really down at 2:00 in the morning, you are not going to hurt my feelings to pick up the phone, because more than likely, I'm either awake or I've just gone to sleep. It's no big deal. So I have had calls from people at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And they go, Joy, I just was at a point that I couldn't take this anymore. I hope I haven't woke you up. I hope I haven't disturbed you or whatever. And I tell them, no, you haven't. Because if I can help them not give up to Satan, it'll be worth every second that I didn't sleep that night.
Exactly.
I just don't want anybody to go to hell. And I encourage people, if they want to send me stuff. I mean, my Facebook page just went professional, so I don't have anybody that cannot be a friend of mine. In other words, it's public. All you got to do is send that stuff to me.
Yep.
I just decided I'm not going to have this friend and not friend, and my page is professional. Mm-hmm. It's open to everybody out there. If you need me, all you got to do is message me.
Yep.
And if I can help you in any way, form, or fashion, and I'm thankful because I have a lot of people who do call me from all over, the United States with situations. And I'm so thankful that I can give what I believe is the advice that God has given to me. He's given me the chance to have experienced some very bad things in my life, to have seen some bad things, to have had case studies with bad things. And it's like I said on a show not too long ago, I don't think there's too many things that somebody could tell me that would shock me.
Right.
I think that I've seen enough, heard enough, or experienced enough now to be able to look at it and give you the best advice, whoever you are.
I can't believe our time is up.
I know, but I feel like, we usually do a lot of in-depth stuff about, the research we've done. But there is nothing any more important than what we've talked about tonight. I mean, I can tell you all about, the British and what's going on and what's happening in the United States and who's doing what. I can tell you that all day long. But the one thing that I need to tell you is that Jesus Christ is the only way. Amen. And you've got to choose him. And we have talked about tonight to let you know that Laura and I both have been through some terrible, terrible, terrible things. And we are saying, even though we've been through the terrible things, we have put Jesus Christ first. And our goal in this life is to teach you to put him first, so that when you pass, raptured, or the end of days, that you are in paradise with the Creator that loved you, that developed you, that planned you, and who wants you to be with him forever in paradise. And that we have an adversary that is after only one thing: your soul, to torture you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just ask people to choose wisely. After hearing this tonight, I pray you choose wisely. Quit hurting people. Quit making people suffer in your life. Go to church. Be a part of people who gather together, assemble themselves for the purpose of worshiping Jesus. Put it first. Pray. Put him first. Every time you start to do something, think, is he first? Is he first? Is he first? It says if you put him first, he will give you the desires of your heart. And his people never go. It's not that we have the perfect life. It's not that we're not hurting. It's not that we haven't gone through stuff. But I'll tell you this. Everything that I've had to encounter, it has made me a stronger person. And it's allowed me to help people that if I had not had those things happen, I would not have understood their heart. And I can honestly say, because of the things I've been through, I can understand your heart, Lori, and anybody else is out there that's been through this. And the compassion that I have extends to each and every one that is having to suffer for good.
Exactly. The message that we had tonight, guys, it was something I really needed to hear. And I want to thank you, Joy, for joining me.
I love you.
I love you too.
And we're going to get back together. And the next time we'll We'll go in some
Yes,
depth about all this other stuff. But we're living at the end of days, Lori,
I know.
and people have got to choose. If you're riding the fence is Satan's game. If he can get you over here and then back over here and back in the fence, and
Yeah,
he'll make you go to church 3 times and then you take off 2 times and you use an excuse and then you don't do that. He wants to keep you. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And Satan wants you to ride that fence and keep you unstable. Get in the pasture with God, because you got green grass, you got calm, cool water to thirst, and you're not ever thirsty.
exactly.
And you're never without, because he's with us
Amen. That's
always.
true. Always. That's right. Well, guys, I want to thank Dr. Joy for joining me tonight. And we will be back. We'll get back on a regular schedule, that's for sure. I'm not really sure. Not really sure what it is, but give me a few days. Dave goes in for his other surgery in a few weeks, so I've got a few weeks to have some time to myself here. So I'll be. We can do the monthly. Sunday's good for you.
Yes, yes, yes. So when we can get back on our regular little schedule thing, then we'll have a lot more to talk about.
That's
But
right.
I still
That was good.
think the greatest book that's out there is the Bible. I want you to read my work, but I'll tell you, everybody needs to read God's book. It's
Exactly.
important for you to know your creator.
Exactly. I want to thank everybody for joining us in the chat room tonight. I want to thank all of our moderators as always. And until next time, guys, remember, eyes open, no fear.